Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at a couple of offerings from Thomas Earnshaw, specifically the Longitude Skeleton Mechanical, and these are coded the ES8062. Obviously we have two different versions here, a blue hued version with a nice matching blue strap, and more of a traditional white version with a black strap. So let's think about the specifics first of all. Thomas Earnshaw tend to be much more of a classic dress watch. They do a lot of kind of skeletonized mechanical watches, so this fits in nicely with the rest of their range. This one, the RRP is a bit wild at £470. Now I will go out straight away and say that's mental, and they sort of know that as well, because not only do they give out discount codes pretty willy-nilly, so I have actually got a Watch All About discount code which will be in the description, which gives you 30% off straight away. So that will make it around £329. However, if you do a bit of Googling, they're still available for around £235. So we'll use that as more of a marker for the price. Size-wise, pretty large actually. So I've got just over a 7-inch wrist. So here we have the blue version. So it's a 44mm diameter, with a height of approximately 12 mil and a look to look length of 50.5 mil. So size wise, yeah, they're really big, certainly bigger than you'd usually expect for a dress watch. However, it does create, quite an impression, especially with the skeletonized movement and indeed skeletonized entire dial. You can see the difference in the size from the movement there, and then the rest of it is merely just empty space, which is still quite interesting. So size-wise, a little bit larger than you would necessarily expect. However, it still does look pretty impressive and pretty imposing on the wrist, and it actually doesn't wear quite 44 mil either. Weight-wise, it's 72 grams. So it does feel reasonably, not necessarily weighty on the wrist, but it gives you a good feeling that it's there. It's not uncomfortable. Sorry, not too heavy, so that you can't wear it for a long time. Water resistance is 5 atmospheres or 50 meters. It's a dress watch, so don't go swimming in it, that's for sure. You don't have any protection at all. However, you do have a measure of protection if you do drop it. It's just a push-pull crown at the end of the day. And it is a screw-in case back, but you shouldn't really trust it too much with water exposure. Lug weight's 22 mil, so it is reasonably fat, pretty wide. It does obviously have to be a little bit wider to match the size of the case, however, and I think it does fit in ratio with the size of the case reasonably well as well. It just makes sure that you need to have a large enough wrist to be able to pass it off, basically. 2-year warranty as well, so that's pretty good if anything does go wrong. And the movement, now it doesn't actually specify anywhere at all where the movement is. I tried to have a bit of a Google, I couldn't actually find one, so really we're looking at just some non-specified made in China movement, which is most likely a clone of the ETA 6497. It looks nice, however, and it's actually really well regulated. It's coming in at plus 5.9 seconds a day, which is really impressive for what is a pretty standard undisclosed movement. So that's a really good plus. It just looks really nice as well. Everything usually with these kind of made in China movements, the quality of finishing isn't there. Sometimes they're a little bit grubby as well, but that's not the case here. It's really neat and really tidy, which I was quite impressed by. Okay, so let's think about, that's all the specs covered. Let's think about the watch in closer detail. Starting off with the dial, obviously it's plain to see it's a skeleton dial, so not a huge amount going on in terms of the dial itself. However, we do have these applied numerals, which are pretty nice. You get a nice bit of depth, as you can see. We'll have a look at it in closer detail with the macro lens on, but they're all brushed, which is a nice touch as well, and this sort of applied central disc, which frames the movement nicely. So as I mentioned before, the entirety of the dial is clear. However, only the skeleton, the movement only covers the center bit. So you actually do get to see the back side of the steel case back here. So you get to see this ring around here. In all honesty, it doesn't actually make that much difference. It still looks pretty good, to be honest. Gives you, a tremendous amount of depth because, these numerals are almost suspended in thin air. It gives the appearance of. So that's pretty good. Legibility is a little bit affected because, as you can see, the hands are quite thin, slender and elegant. Nice design, nice length, nicely finished as well. However, when they are against a mechanical movement, legibility can be a little bit affected on the blue option. However, on the white option, as you can see, they're blued, so legibility is a lot better on that instance. You can glance at the watch and tell the time a lot quicker. In terms of design, I think the dial is really, really nice. I do like the numerals, maybe a little bit on the large side for my personal taste, but I do like the suspension feeling to it. Obviously, seeing the movement itself is really nice as well. Hands a good design, so everything's finished, remarkably well as well. Moving on to the case then, we have a pretty standard like chromey kind of finish. Not the most impressive, I'll be honest. We have Earnshaw engraved on the side. The crystal, I believe, is most likely mineral as well. Again, that is not specified. However, Earnshaws don't tend to be sapphire, and when you tap it, it gives a bit of a light chink to it. So that's a bit of a bummer. Moving on to the case back, as I mentioned before, screw-in case back. Nice view of the movement and the Earnshaw logo printed on the underside of the exhibition window. These details nice and deeply engraved. And the crown is really nice and easy to use as well. It's an onion type crown. Because it is a hand wind only movement, it has to be a little bit bigger. So it gives you good grip to be able to wind it up and good grip to pull it out and change the time as well. So moving on to the strap then. My personal preference is the blue strap. I really, really like it. A little bit different, a little bit unusual, and it's actually really surprisingly quality leather as well. Really nice and supple, really comfortable on, really easy to wear and easy to use. As I mentioned before, on a little bit on the fatter side of things, and then on the buckle we have the classic Earnshaw buckle, which is a nice unusual buckle because it's in the shape of an E if you hold it to the side. The only issue with this is when you are wearing it, let me just put the black version on. When you are wearing it, it does tend to rub, particularly where obviously this bar here meets the strap. So you do get all of the force coming through on this point here, and that does cause the leather strap to degrade a little bit faster than usual. Okay, so that's everything discussed. Let's get the macro lens on and have a look at it in much closer detail. So let's start off with the dial on the white version. So here we have the logo printed on its little bar, and then we have this disc with the numerals bridging between this inner disc and the outer disc. As you can see, all pretty nicely machined, brushed finish, well applied as well. And then we have our hands, which are blued, and loom dots. The double E logo working as a counterweight of the second hand, which is nice. And we're getting a nice blue hue from the anti-reflective coating on the crystal as well there. Looking at the movement itself underneath the dial, as you can see, everything seems pretty surprisingly neat and tidy for what is in reality an indescript movement. Flip it on the underside whilst we're still talking about the movement. Got some nice perlage there on the bottom bars. Here's the balance spring working away. And if I give it a little bit of a wind, we should see these rotating nicely. There we go. So yeah, impressed by the quality of the movement. So let's just have a very quick look at the dial on the blue. Again, more or less exactly the same, except for we've got standard brushed steel effect hands there, and brushed numerals looking very nice against the blue backdrop. Moving on to the case then. Here we have the Earnshaw engraving on the side. And polished primarily, apart from this brushed block on top of the lugs. Moving over to the other side, here's our nice onion crown with really good effective grip. You can see it's nicely machined as well. Then if we just flip it over, give the case back a wipe, here's our information engraved around the around the outside of the exhibition window. Again, very nice and neat. So moving on to the strap then. This is obviously the blue strap, got this alligator stamp, very nice and comfortable leather. And the black strap, here we have, similar finish. And then if we flip it up to the buckle, here's the Earnshaw logo. As you can see, it's laser etched. Would have been nicer if it was engraved, obviously. However, the buckle's still very interesting. 2 polished sides and then the center brushed section. Okay, so would I buy it? Certainly not for the RRP of £470, because at the end of the day, that is pretty outrageous. I probably still wouldn't even buy it with my 30% off voucher at £329. At the price you can get it at, £235, that's a bit more like it. They are undoubtedly really nice looking watches, and they are really well constructed as well. Despite the movement not being really specified or a bit indescript, the movement is still really, really nice. It's obviously really well regulated as well. So very nice watches. I would probably still try and pay around the £200 mark. 235, which is what I've been able to find it at on the internet at the moment, is probably okay. To be honest with you, mechanical skeleton watches, they don't come around too often, and when they do, on the cheaper side of things, they do look a little bit cheap and tacky. So I do find that in some instances it is better to pay a little bit more to get, genuinely a nice looking, well finished watch, which this is at the end of the day. So it's just a little bit of shame that it's a mineral crystal rather than a sapphire crystal. That's probably the main downfall of the watch. However, it has a nice anti-reflective coating to the crystal, so that does create a nice visual impression. Okay, so this was the Thomas Earnshaw Longitude Skeleton Mechanical, and that is what it's all about.